Good day, everyone, and welcome to our online accounting class series. On today's episode, we'll be dwelling more on double entry principle and use of posting. I can tell you for free that many people still have challenges with 12 points, we need debit, 12 points, we need credit our transaction. And there are some people that if they go for an interview and they ask them to just give a double entry to a transaction, what you just see them saying is that they start narrating a story when what they are just being asked is which account do you take, which account do you credit. So without wasting much time on story, so let us explain what double entry is. When we are saying double entry, what does it mean? In summary, double entry means that at minimum, mm, at a minimum, there must there must be two entries for a transaction. That is what double entry is just telling us. Now, what is the rule of double entry itself? As established by Luca Pacioli, he explained to us that our double entry rule is for every debit entry, there must be a corresponding credit entry and vice versa. What this vice versa is telling us is that for every credit entry too, there must be a corresponding debit entry. Now, let us move into the use of posting. In our element of financial statements, which means those items that we see in all our financial statements, there are five. We have assets, we have liability, we have equity, we have income, we have expenses. You see, these three that we have here, they will be reporting in our statement of financial position or balance sheets. Why this will be reported in our statement of comprehensive income, or we call it profits or loss and other comprehensive income. And the rule of posting is now telling us that, when we are saying that for every debit entry, it means in our posting, is either you must have debit. When you have one debit, you must also have credit for another item. You cannot have debit and debit for one for the same transaction. It's not possible. So now, what element of this, from this element of financial statement, which of them do we debit and which of them do we credit? We can debit them, we can debit all this one, we can still also credit all this one, depending on the events that occur in the business. Now, what you are now going to say here is that debit increases assets and it also increases expenses. While credits increases income, liability, and equity or capital. So all this one is when you are increase. Why for the decrease? Credits will decrease, it will reduce, it will decrease our assets, it will also decrease our expenses. Why debit here? It decrease our income. It will also decrease our liability. And it will also decrease our equity and capital. So, and there is this mnemonic that I usually look this up. I call this one DICE, which means debit all, as it is that my debit increases assets and expenses, while my credit also increases income, equity, and liability. Why this one? I call this one ideal. My credits reduces assets, my credits also reduces expenses. My debit reduces income, it also reduces expenses. Likewise, it also reduces my liability. Now, let me just give one example. Purchased motor vehicle worth of 5 million on credit. Now, we have said that in every transaction we must have what? Must have two entry. That is at minimum. Then let us now try to identify the transactions that we have here. We have motor vehicle. This is one transaction. This is an asset. This is an asset, right? Then the other person that's also sold to us, we also have payable here. We also have payable. So if you have to identify the transaction that we have here, we have assets, the business purchase an asset, and we also have payable or creditor. So when we purchase this motor vehicle, our motor vehicle will increase. If you have two motor vehicle before we purchase this one, it means you add additional one. You are going to have three motor vehicle, right? So what are we going to do? When we are saying that debit will increase assets, what are we going to do? We are going to debit our motor vehicle, right? Then for the payable, payable is a creditor. Payable is a creditor, right? Payable is also the same thing as creditor and is a liability to us because we are still owing. So if you are owing, so it means that what you are owing will also increase, isn't it? Then what do we do here? We also credit our pay. So this is the double entry that we are being asked. You can see how simple the double entry is. So this is all what we are just being asked. So if you are giving any transaction, what you just need to identify, the first thing you need to do is that we should identify the two entries that will be in that transaction and what is the effect. Okay, if I'm buying on credit, what will happen? It means that I'm owing someone and I'm also having an asset. Let us also use another example here. Let us also use another example. Assume I assume I paid for electricity, paid for electricity through bank, paid electricity through bank. So my bank will be reducing, isn't it? So if my bank is reducing, so what am I going to have here? I will have debit as I know that I'm going to have debit and credit. My bank will reduce. My bank is also an asset to me. And if the bank is reducing, what am I going to have here? I said that credit reduces asset. So I'm going to have credit bank while I'll debit what? My expenses is increasing. Then I will debit electricity expenses. Electricity. So this is just double entry. The only thing I think it is very important for us in our double entry is interpretation. If we are able to interpret what is being given to us, we will not be having an issue. We just need to interpret, okay, this transaction that occur, what are the impact, what are the effects? So those are the things that we just need to know about our double entry. If we understand this mnemonic, that okay, debit increases asset and expenses, credit increases income, equity and liability, while my credit reduces assets, expenses, and my debit reduces or decreases income, expenses, and liability. So these are what we are just being asked to do. So it's as simple as ABC. I want to believe that with this little explanation, I've been able to use more and not confused. So if you still have one or two challenges with respect to the understanding of double entry, do not hesitate to reach out so that we can provide more insights into the issue. So until we meet our next class, thank you and stay blessed.